Hello everyone, I'm Den Haring and welcome back to my channel, Fish Den 365. You know, I've been catching the bass pretty good in these pads lately via the pitching technique, and because I've been beating up the pads pretty good, I thought I'd try something a little different today. And that is, I'm going to be drop shotting the pads with a drop shot. That's right, a drop shot in the pads. Let me show you how. Now, like always, when I'm throwing a beaver and I'm going to be drop shotting a beaver bait, I always take a chartreuse marker and I mark the tail and the ends of these two paddle fins. Now, if you've watched this channel for a while, you know why I do that. If you haven't seen why I do it, it's because in some lakes, especially this lake and others, when you look at the bluegills swimming around, the little bluegill bait fish, you'll see that their tails and fins have this little aqua color to it. Hopefully you can see that. You can see that aqua type of sheen that chartreuse marker brings. And that really imitates, I think it's a key trigger for these fish. Chuck this thing in there and they see it as a bluegill or a crayfish, but I'm trying to imitate bluegill in these pads, and they see that it's got a tail and fins that have that same aqua color. It's one of the triggers. It's one of the things that makes a difference. It gets me more bites than I would if I didn't do that. So it's very simple. Just I'm fishing it Texas rigged, just like you would on a Texas rig beaver. Except I got about, I don't know, a 6-inch drop here. Now, the difficult part is I don't have a very heavy weight. Just didn't have any with me. So I chose a cylindrical weight, and that's real important because the weight, you want to get that weight through the pads, right? So you got to have a cylinder type weight, otherwise you're just going to get hung up on the pads all the time. And when you rig this bait, you want to bury that hook point a little bit into the bait so that the bait and the weight can come through the pads nicely. Now, I chose, 6 to 7 or 8 inch leader here. It'd be better probably if it was shorter, and the reason for that is this is a pretty lightweight. I think it's only about a 1/4 ounce and maybe 3/8, I'm not sure. But when I throw it in here, this is following it, so the weight could go down, but then this can get hung up. Or if I don't get the weight exactly where the hole in the pads is that I'm aiming for, then this can go in the hole, but then the weight sits on top of the pad, and then I'm trying to fish it through. So it's not as efficient as throwing a Texas rig like this with the weight on the front. But it's a very different presentation, right? This bait, this is a 3/8 ounce weight. I also like to use a 3/4 ounce depending on what bait I'm using. But this weight, it just goes straight down, and then you can work it in the pads that way. Very efficient, gets in the pads very well. But the fish see a lot of this. If a lot of people are fishing the pads, this is the primary thing they're seeing, this in topwater. And I've tried topwater. It's not quite the deal yet. It's a little early in the season. That's also probably not the best time of day. Maybe I'll get one tonight on the toad or a frog. We'll keep throwing. But, I thought I'd try something a little different. Some people call it a power shot technique because you're fishing a heavier drop shot weight than normal, and you're power fishing through these pads. But it is effective. It will catch fish. You got to be a little more patient getting it through the pads, but I can tell you, the fish haven't seen many presentations like this, and when this thing goes down there and this weight's on the bottom and this is just floating, boy, sometimes they just crush it and they'll just take it and swim with it. And a lot of times, when you're fishing the Texas rig with the weight on the front, it's tough to tell when you got a bite. It just gets a little heavier, it feels a little funky, it doesn't feel quite right. And then you don't want to second guess, you want to set the hook when that happens. But this, what I found on the power shot, when this gets bit, you usually know it. They grab it and they just take it hard. because there's no negative cues for them. They're not used to seeing a bait presented in this way. It takes a little more patience, takes a lot of casting accuracy, but it can be worth your while when the fish are getting fed up with the standard Texas rig going in there. Let's see how we do. Not a bad one. He's been caught before. Swimming in it. Got it good. As I was saying, there's no doubt when they hit it, he just swam off with it. And you know, I threw the bait in there, it went down, and the line just kept going. And I know it wasn't that deep in there, so I reeled back home, found myself a little bass here. But they like that drop shot technique. It works in the pads. See what else we can get. Break a couple out right away. Trip. Paint them up. All right. Let's get another one. When I'm fishing this thick cover like this with the drop shot, I'm just using straight braid, even including on the drop shot weight. I paint it black with a black marker and just use the braid. I don't think they can tell when you're fishing this thick cover. If it was more open water, I'd fish fluorocarbon, but in this thick cover, you need the braid to get them out. Note to self, watch that braid when you grab onto it. Alright, we got ourselves a keeper at least. Let's see if this is on here. Yeah, still on. Ooh, I fell in my hand bad now. That last fish was caught during a lunker tournament. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to weigh him in because I got stranded because of a heavy thunderstorm. I got stuck up lake. Fortunately, somebody helped me out and gave me a ride back to the boat launch so I didn't have to wait out the storm. But I ended up putting that fish back shortly after I caught it after the storm came up. So drop shotting the pads can be very, very effective, especially when those fish are up under the pads and not relating to the bottom. And this is what's been happening at Nakamixon in recent days. The fish, I've noticed, have been up underneath those pads. You can pitch that drop shot out there and then just have it up off the bottom, and then you can just kind of reel it up so that it's just under the pads and just shake it a little bit, work it. And when they hit it, they crush it because they're just not used to seeing that presentation. It can be very effective that way. So it gives you a good 1-2 punch. You know, you can always go punching the pads with a good Texas rig. The other thing is you can always use the power shot or the drop shot technique, and that works too. Very few people are doing that, and it does take some patience. There is some, it could lead to some frustration if your casting is not accurate. It forces you to be an accurate caster because you have to pick your little holes in the pads and get that little drop shot weight and your bait on a trajectory that both go through the holes. If you watch the video, you can see me sometimes I'll miss a little bit and I'll be shaking the rod so that I can get that bait and the weight to drop through the pads. Once it drops through, though, you're in, and then it's just a matter of waiting those fish and hopefully that come up and grab the bait. What I've been finding is when they want it, they really take it hard, so there's no doubt that you've been hit, that they've got the bait. That is not the case most of the time when you're fishing the standard Texas rig. The bites are sometimes difficult to detect. So there's pros and cons to both techniques. I hope you found the video useful. If you did, I work hard to bring a lot of the content that I do to the videos. I try and show different techniques, alternative methods of fishing, stuff that should matter, stuff that will make you a better fisherman. My channel is all about the art and science of bass fishing. It is an art. There's a lot of science that goes with it. If you combine those two, you'll be a better fisherman. If you found the video to be helpful, I'd appreciate it if you help me out by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Well, until next time, hope to see you on the water, and may God bless your fishing endeavors.